All right. About to talk about how chalk body's an agent of the Antichrist, of the adversary, and a sympathy for the devil type of argument that tells you maybe, just maybe, what you've been told is the devil and the bad guy and the liar and the cheat and the thief and the evil one is actually the good guy. And just to start you off with some real good juicy nuggets, the original Mormonism, and it's still got the same doctrine, but the culture has been diluted and co-opted and redirected. But Mormonism, in their original scriptures and doctrine and beliefs, say that the bite of the apple in the Garden of Eden was a gift and a blessing, not the downfall of man. That means they're worshiping the exact opposite of mainstream Christianity. That means they're devil worshippers, right? The spirit of the current Mormon church is not what it used to be. They are showing, Mark Dice, I'll include a link in the description where Mark Dice shows that the Mormon church is now supporting the gay marriage bill, which will make sure that the federal Supreme Court cannot do away with and abolish what has been legalized in certain states. So the Mormon Church, the institution, the organization, is in support of gay marriage. They told all their missionaries to go take a vax, and they're not telling anyone about plasma fire. So, we'll work our way back around to these points that I've just itemized and named off. I got 30 exits to go. We're going to use chalk body outline as an example to work our way back around to how mainstream Christianity is lying to you, and you can see it with your own eyes. When they don't tell you anything about plasma fire, they're concealing it from you. And the churches of all the organizations and institutions, you would think, would be the ones who are eager to point this out to their followers and say, look, it's game time. The earth's being cleansed by fire. Now's not the time to budge or compromise. Stick with what you know. Hold true to your faith and your beliefs. But no, not a single church is telling any one of their followers about plasma fire. And all those churches closed their doors and told their followers to go take a vax. You name me one church that's taken a stand and told their people, don't anyone take that shit. Name one church. You might be able to name, this pastor or that pastor within a larger organization of this church or that church. For the most part, there are none. They've all gone lockstep in the same march to the same tune of all the other organizations and institutions of government, medicine, higher education, law enforcement, and church. They're all working hand in glove. Not a single one of them is showing you the plasma fire or telling you the obvious truth about the vax, which isn't as obvious as the trees burning right in front of your face. But as time went on, the truthers, it turns out, were right about the vax. We could see it from early on, but there was a lot of speculation. That speculation turns out to have been right in the results of the data and the information coming from coroners and morticians a short time later. So we could see it. The church could see it too, but they said nothing. You can see plasma fire with your own eyes. And when you see chalk body outline over here pointing at it saying, there's nothing to see here, nothing to see here. That's totally normal. You can see he is actively working against the truth. That makes him Antichrist. Christ is truth. The Spirit of Christ is the Spirit of truth. And he is not just turning a blind eye out of cognitive dissonance and normalcy bias, trying to preserve his self-image and worldview as a coping mechanism. He is actively standing in front of the crime scene, telling everyone, don't look here, nothing to see here. If you think anything's wrong with that and that's not totally normal, there's something wrong with you. You and this guy, you're fucking crazy. He is actively working against the truth, not just unwilling to accept it, actively working against it. He's not just not in alignment with truth, he is anti-truth, against the truth that you can see with your own eyes. There is no speculation about plasma fire the way there has been about the vax and the COVID. You can see the trees burning from the inside with your own eyes. There is no speculation about that. And you know with your own information processor that's not normal. It is self-evident. It does speak for itself. He is against that truth. Telling everybody, like Men in Black, where they wave the little red pen across your eyes, just like in the lyrics to the song M.I.B., sang by Will Smith, what you think you saw, you did not see. Like some sort of fucking Jedi mind trick. Gaslighting his viewers, and to whatever extent he can, getting them to not believe what they see with their own eyes and not think with their own mind. That would tell them very obviously and straightforward, that's not normal. That's unlike anything you've ever seen. So, we've established plasma fire is real. I'm not trying to get you to understand or accept that. We've established chalk body outline is not real. He is fake. I've established that. He has proven that. What I'm bringing your attention to is that there is an adversarial force that is working through him, whether that force gives him his instructions through visible and audible instructions. They tell him with words or they put it in writing and he reads it and it is visible. And it is an organization, an institution like from the physical realm that we live in of the military-industrial complex, or principalities and powers of wickedness in high places that give him his instructions through a spiritual means, an invisible and unaudible vibratory frequency that controls him, that manipulates him, that uses him like a puppet on a string. Either way, there is a adversarial force that is against the truth being known by the general public, and that force is using chalk body outline as an operative, as an agent, like a puppet on a string, like a marionette doll. Whether it gives him his instructions through spiritual transmission in vibratory frequencies that are invisible and inaudible, or it uses physical people who give him his instructions through visible and audible language, written or spoken. Either way, there is an adversary that is against you knowing the truth and is using him to do everything they can to keep you from knowing the truth. Therefore, when you see chalk body outline over here trying to tell you that there's nothing to see there, and you can see it with your own eyes, he is in strong opposition to that truth that you know to be plasma fire, and doing anything and everything he can to keep people from seeing it for what it is. He is also in strong opposition to archaics. This is a straightforward line of thinking, not some sort of complex reverse psychology. Hold on. We got a shitload of plasma fire trees right here. Okay, I'm not going to do that today. Maybe on the way back. You can see plasma fire for yourself. You can see chalk body outline is against the truth that you can see with your own eyes. There is no speculation. There is no room for discussion. There is no argument that can be made that will convince you that plasma fire phenomenon is not unlike anything we've ever seen before and somehow not real. So you can see that chalk body outline is working against the truth, anti-truth. And he's working against archaics, very anti-archaics. So it's a natural line of logical deductive reasoning that would lead you to the conclusion, maybe there's truth over here in archaics. It may not be as simple and straightforward as plasma fire, because there's nothing to understand about plasma fire. It has nothing to do with any of my thoughts and theories and beliefs. You can see it for yourself. That's how you know it's true. You can think for yourself. That's how you know it's not normal. When you can see chalk working against the truth right here on this plasma fire thing, and you can see that he's in strong opposition to archaics, it leads you to believe, maybe there's truth over there that he doesn't want me to run into or believe or see or hear or understand, just like he's against this truth that I already can see and understand. The same goes for the church and Lucifer. When you can see they are against you, they are the adversarial spirit that wants to keep you in the dark, not understanding anything about the COVID, the vax, or the plasma fire. And they're telling you, don't look over there, that's the deceiver, that's the trickster. He's evil, just like Chalk Body Outline says about archaics. He's a rapist and a con man. So the church says about Lucifer. He's a deceiver and a trickster and evil. Don't look over there. When you can see Chalk Body Archaics denying and trying to confuse and beguile and befuddle and mislead anyone that he can about the obvious truth about plasma fire, and the only other thing you've seen him show such equally strong opposition to is archaics, makes you think, maybe there's some truth over there. And when you can see the churches keeping a lid on plasma fire, not telling anyone the truth about COVID, not telling their parishioners and followers the earth is being cleansed by fire right now, hold your ground, hold the line, don't compromise, and don't take that vax. None of them are doing that. You can see, just like you can see in Chalk Body Outline, a deceiver. And it makes you want to go see what archaics has to offer that he doesn't want you to receive. Likewise with the church, is an organization and institution of deceivers. Makes you want to go see what Lucifer has to offer that they didn't want you to see. It's a straightforward line of logical deductive reasoning. And those of you who say, oh no, now you've gone a bridge too far. Do you trust your own senses? And do you trust your own information processor? And do you trust your own morality? That's what makes the difference. In that documentary called Suddenly Died, they played the song Nights of Shame. That's where the dividing line is. Have you been a moral person? If you know so, you're able to go explore areas and investigate, knowing you can trust on your own morality, and that you won't be trickstered into some sort of evil and supporting this. Only if you have compromised yourself do you not trust your own level of morality. Only if you've lied to yourself do you not trust your own senses and your own information processor. Those are the people that Chalk Body Outline appeals to. People who don't trust their own eyes and their own brain, but somehow it matters to them more what he says he sees. And he says, all I see is twigs and sticks. When they can see more than twigs and sticks, but hear him saying all he sees is twigs and sticks, the only person that would go along with that is someone who doesn't trust their own eyes and their own information processor between their ears. So back to the original Mormon church, who withstood the persecution of peer pressure and authority. Those are the two criteria by which this consciousness farm has already been filtered. Those who don't have a strong enough resistance to peer pressure and the pressure of authority went and took a vaccine, and many of them are no longer with us, or they will soon be gone. The early Mormons got persecuted and came from Independence, Missouri out to Salt Lake, Utah. They had to be willing to stand for what they believe in to the point where they're willing to die for it. They aren't anymore. They're an obedience cult who believes that we are happiest when we are obedient to the requests of our leaders. That is a quote from a lady I heard in church, and she's not alone in that sentiment. They all believe that, and the church leaders are going along with the agenda of the leaders of government and education, where they're reading shit to your kids in school, letting the tranny come in the library and brainwash your kids. Those early Mormon settlers here in Utah had to be willing to withstand the peer pressure of people saying, "You're a devil worshiper. If you believe the bite of the apple in the Garden of Eden was a good thing and not the downfall of man, but a gift and a blessing, you're a devil worshiper." And there was no practical separation between church and state at the time. Because when you go to court, the judge, the bailiff, the sheriff, your 12 jurors, and all the law enforcement officers, they all go to the same church. And thus, that ideology within that church is what you will be prosecuted by under the law, just as you will be persecuted through peer pressure of the community. You will be prosecuted in court for whatever crime they have to invent and hold you guilty for, because they all go to the same church. So there was no practical separation between church and state. They were the same thing. Church was the law enforcement governing body of the town. And when those Mormons say we believe the exact opposite of you about something so fundamental as what the mainstream Christianity calls the original sin, and they say, no, we believe it's the exact opposite. That bite of the apple was a gift and a blessing, not a curse and the downfall of man. The townspeople then need hear nothing further. They all know from that point forward, you're a devil worshiper. The current Mormons that go along with whatever the peer pressure and the fashion of the day tells them they must, could not have withstood that peer pressure, would not have stood for what they believed in to the point where they were willing to die for it. Instead, they just go along to get along these days. That organization, that institution has been infiltrated and hijacked and co-opted. And there is no real difference between them and the mainstream Christianity at this point. But in the original culture of that community, of that consciousness, Anima rising, queen of queens, wash my guilt of Eden, wash and balance me. Anima rising, so what? Petrified wood process, tall timber down to rock. It's referring to the plasma fire, what J Dreamers calls the plasma apocalypse, and what Archaics calls the Phoenix cycle. Petrified wood process, tall timber down to rock. Truth goes up in vapors, steeples lean. Winds of change, patriarchs, snug in your Bible Belt dreams. God goes up the chimney like childhood Santa Claus. The good slaves love the good book. A rebel loves a cause. Oh, the rebel! Satan was the rebel in heaven. Lucifer was the rebel. Hey, evil. Rebel equals evil. Look around you. The only good people standing in principle right now are the rebellious ones. There was a book and a TV series titled Childhood's End, where aliens, and I remind you, Jesus was not of this world, aliens are circling the earth, making glimpses of appearances here and there. And they've contacted one blue-collar, regular, working-class Joe and have been communicating to him for a few years. And he has been communicating to the general public like a liaison, like an intermediary, like a ambassador. And then, after a few years of this, they decide they're just going to come all the way out for the big reveal. And when they do step off of that spaceship, they look exactly like what we have been programmed to fear and loathe. With the horns and the goat hooves and the red skin and all the rest. Exactly like what you've been programmed to fear as the devil. But if you know what I've been doing, and you've been following along pretty closely, ideals before idols, principles before personalities, substance over style, and function over form. And you know that the God that's been cultivating me and the qualities of character that I've demonstrated over the past 5 years, and those things that I prioritize, the God that is cultivating that consciousness is a good God in function, in principle, in ideals, and in substance. So it does not matter what form they take, what personality traits they may have. They will be directly in opposition to what you've been conditioned to idolize. They will represent the icon of the exact opposite of what you've been trained to hate and fear. But when you can see the mainstream church that told you all that shit, that programmed you with all that fear, is indeed, in practice, in ideals, and in principles, leading you astray like sheep to the slaughter, what other choice do you have? When you can see that it's like Wile E. Coyote in Roadrunner, when he runs up the trail and turns the sign a 180. Instead of pointing north this way, now it says north is that way. When you can see that the beast system is what gave you that Bible, and all the doctrine and dogma of the scriptures that goes along with it, and that they are leading you like sheep to the slaughter, are you going to rely on all those idol worship, or the ideals and principles of this God that I follow? Are you going to rely on the form of this church and their presentation, or the function of the God that I follow, who's been working on a jailbreak? The style or the substance? And it'll be a real easy choice when the whole world starts to go to shit all around you real fast, and you recognize you can either go with the rest of them and experience the consequences of that life and that world they've created, and they will be in a world just like the rest of themselves, full of self-serving people who will cannibalize and devour themselves very quickly when the restrainer is lifted that kept them in a somewhat civilized state of existence. When that world is suddenly going down the tubes real fast, and you receive an offer the likes of which, if it's shunned, you might as well be walking on the sun, from the God that leads me, and you know that you've been contacted by God, there is no doubt in your mind, and you know that the world is going down the drain real quick, there is no doubt in your mind, it'll be a very easy choice. Because we have this allegiance to tribe rather than truth, it's very hard to be the first one to go down that path. It's even hard to be the second one to go down that path. We are in the collective initiation. I went through an individual initiation process over the past 5 years. And by going through the jungle with my machete and clearing that path for the rest of you, you will be able to fall in like an icebreaker ship breaks the ice. And then the other boats can come right down the same path where the icebreaker ship went. When you've been contacted, and you know you've been contacted because you've had an experience unlike anything you've ever had before, and you know that this is God interacting with you, and that God makes it very clear to you it's the same spirit that's led me, be a very easy choice. When the rest of the world and the people in it are about to experience the destruction, because they are on the wide open path that leads to destruction, you will know you've been given an opportunity to join us on the narrow path and go through that narrow gate. Join the culture of consciousness that we're cultivating, that will make a better world worth living in because it will be filled with people worth living with. That's what makes a world worth living in, is if it has people that are worth living with inside of it. These self-serving people are going to devour each other because that is their underlying priorities, principles, and standards. Anything that leads to their own comfort and convenience, they've never done anything for anyone besides themselves. And anything they can point to, oh, I did this for this person and that for that person. There was a self-serving motivation, just like you when you go to work. You didn't do shit for the boss or that manager or that manager. You did it all for yourself, for the return on your investment that you'll get in money. And all those people, anything they can point to, oh, I was a good person, I did this for that person and that for this person, was actually a roundabout way of serving themselves and getting a return on their investment. They didn't do shit. Their underlying priority is self-serving. Thus, so are their principles and their standards. And they're going to be allowed to live in a world full of people just like themselves. And that world is going to cannibalize itself so fast when the restrainer is lifted that kept this society and this culture of consciousness somewhat civil. And in fact, it will be expedited and accelerated. And that will be a mercy killing, relieving them from their own misery by expediting and accelerating the process toward their inevitable conclusion. At that time, it'll be pretty easy for a few people who recognize the qualities of character that I've demonstrated. You will know them by their fruits. That's how you know the church is the evil ones, because they're keeping quiet about plasma fire and the vax, leading you like sheep to the slaughter. You know them by their fruits. And you know me by my fruits. And the behavioral characteristics that I've demonstrated and embodied. The underlying priorities and principles that have shown themselves through my standards of behavior. It'll be very obvious. We are creating a culture of consciousness through this refinement and distillation process that is going to be full of good people to live with. Because if everybody demonstrated the qualities of character that I have, they were all smart enough to see it and courageous enough to say it, amongst other principled behavior patterns that I've exhibited throughout my whole life, this world would be a lot better place. So, if God contacts you, there'll be some people that feel unworthy to receive such an invitation. And at the point where they would receive such an invitation, will accept it without hesitation. Don't hesitate, 'cause my love won't wait. Ooh, baby, I love your way.